Alright, so now that for those of you that may have missed this last night, this is a game we did on Twitch. Went pretty well. The damage tracker is obviously going to be a little flawed as usual. It was a good 100,000 damage match, and I'll post a screenshot in it at the end of the video as well, or at least a link to it. But it's pretty decent little outcome there. My friend says him there is in the Dirpitz, and I am in the North Carolina. It's a Tier 8 U.S. battleship. That's pretty good, especially since they buffed it. The shell dispersion is something I'm still getting used to, but it seems to be working, and hopefully this will be an enjoyable little experience. The enemy team kind of murder-balled up really good at the start. Ours was a little bit more, shall we say, spread out and conservative. Of course, using the World of Warships replay, and which means you don't get to see all the little features of the UI, but it works for now. Also been fiddling around in Iceland's mods a little bit. Picked up a new display on the sides there for enemy health, as well as other things like current visibility when firing, visibility when not firing, and all that good stuff. It's a pretty, standard thing, but it helps. Howie, New York is the match. Yeah, he is teamed up with a Nuremberg, so it's not exactly a failed division. It's just Matchmaker was apparently really drunk last night and absolutely hated those two guys. There's no reality in which a New York should be in the same match as a North Carolina or Dirpitz. First fire burn itself out if you're a battleship. Because you never know, you might get set on fire twice right after it, or worse, you might get surprise torpedoed. Though it's a little bit more difficult to do that at Tier 8, especially if you're packing like I do the target acquisition module. Because at the time when I redid this ship, there were a lot more destroyers in the queues than there are now. Now it seems to have kind of evened out a little bit, which is a good thing. You really shouldn't have 6 or 7 of one ship type on the battlefield at any one point in time. Be that destroyers, battleships, cruisers, whatever. You should probably have an more even spread, which seems to be the case lately. That is a enemy Miyoko, and I think I take a shot at him here in a little bit. But I always take the low-hanging fruit first, and Dirpitzes who aren't making a great deal of turning are a very low-hanging fruit. I guess I do shoot the Miyoko, but he's smart enough to turn. I think he's got the incoming fire alert. Always tell because they'll sell broadside just like anybody else, and the second they get shot at, they'll start turning before the shells are even coming towards them. So it happens. You see, this is already kind of becoming a mismatch, but it was still a decent game. Anytime you lose more than your health and damage, always a good thing. My general rule of thumb is if I'm not pulling my health and damage in a battleship, that I've done something a little wrong. So pretty much my minimum to ride for me to consider it a good, decent match is at least 66. If you do at least that much, you're doing decent. Which, as you obviously see, we're not there yet. And my Valiant teammates, you can see them starting to pull back the other direction. I think people forget this is a PvP game, to be honest. And they just kind of sail off, like, not quite like potatoes, but anything they can do to not get shot by the enemy, or to shoot the enemy for that matter. They seem to do a lot here lately. It seems to have been the new thing, and here comes the damage. I got my ass kicked because I did a dumb, as you can see. Never a good thing to have that happen to you. This is, I think, is probably where the second time my damage tracker failed to pick up the damage. Earlier it did it to that Pensacola who took a Citadel from me. And the game didn't register it because obviously the tracker only works on targets you can see the numbers on for some reason. But this guy here, he's got to go. Not me. And sometimes you just shoot a little too high. Not exactly used to these new guns. I've kind of had to pull back. My friend Sezum was trying to get in there and start a push, but as you can see, our teammates were having none of it. Even with the two battleships that had been near the front line. And they still didn't want to do it. It's always a little disappointing when that happens. And that time, I took care of the Nuremberg problem, but not before my friend bought it, unfortunately. And I think that was just a failed torpedo run by the Benson on a Dirpitz. At least I hope that's who he was trying to torpedo. Because if he was trying to torpedo somebody else, he failed miserably. And I'm trying to get to our teammates so I can then turn the ship back around and start fighting again. But, you know, it may or may not happen. It's just kind of how these things go a lot. And, at least this seems to be working.
Reporting the position of a strategic target.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Tried to single out their Dirpitz for focus firing. I would assume that Miyoko probably stepped on the gas. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to actually whack him here. Well, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Sometimes you get the shots that you actually were intending on. I could have hit him again, probably here, but I elected instead to focus on somebody that I knew was a half-decent shot, just based on the damage I had taken at that point. And the Benson needed to go. He was going to be a problem if I didn't have him focused.
Torpedoes, dead ahead. Torpedoes, direct front.
And he didn't do a great job trying to hit the Fuso, that is for sure. And I don't think he was trying for the 2-for-1 special. At this point, I'm just kind of shooting with the plane while I still got it. That way, I actually switched over from the interceptor to back to the spot plane, mostly because the North Carolina's AA is pretty godlike, honestly. I have a 100 AA rating in it right now, so kind of decided that it needed to have more gun range just for the occasions when people are running away, or I am closing in on the enemy and don't care if they see me. Which there are many situations like that, but it does happen. You see, we're trying not to hit the Fuso when we fail, because swinging a little too wide. Just a little bit. Big girl compared to the other battleships. I do consider the North Carolina, right now anyway, the best of the U.S. battleships up to the point that I've played, and I do have an Iowa. I do not have a Montana yet. But I found the Iowa to be somewhat disappointing in battlefield effectiveness. Even against Tier 10s, the North Carolina, I think, is just a little bit better. It has a much tighter turning radius, so it does a decent job of dodging shells, and it is considerably more stealthy, as long as you're not firing your guns anyway. Whenever I get this guy stealthed out, he will have a... With the module that I've selected, I should have about a 12-kilometer detection radius, which is very nice. As long as I don't fire my guns, I will be able to drive up on people a lot more effectively than I can right now. Right now, we're just kind of enjoying the 20-kilometer max range till my team rallies a little bit here, decides what they're going to do. Which, as you can see, it looks like they're going for the cap, but I believe something stopped them from actually being able to pull that off. So it was pretty much up to the battleship group in the south here to repel their cap attempt, which we do manage. So it's a decent game. It's not my best, but it is far from the worst that I've ever had. I actually had my record low damage ever dealt in any ship last night in this ship, like 3 matches after. I pretty much got abused by 2 Yamatos and a carrier. And I had played way too conservatively, so I didn't actually get to do a whole lot. So, that's generally, this is not the play style that I favor. I am 90% of the time much more aggressive than this. But sometimes you just kind of have to rein it in a little bit. This guy here, I honestly thought he was going to do something a little bit different than he turned out to do, if I remember right. This doesn't actually hurt him that bad. Yeah, all things considered, I thought he was going to keep moving, but he elected not to. So we kind of slowed up a little bit. And we're going to abuse the armor mechanic a little bit on the North Carolina's bow. She's surprisingly tanky as long as she's bow on. Which, you know, that makes a pretty big difference. And I thought this New York was going to die, but dispersion did not favor me. And by the time I used my second salvo, he had already been shot, so at that point, all that's left is their Cleveland and Dirpitz in our cap. We pretty much repelled this handily, as you can see. And I'm debating on to which one I can shoot most effectively. Which, I don't think that is the Cleveland. Yeah, I miss him. I'm waiting on him to turn, just in case he gets missed. I go ahead and shoot anyway. There we go. Now I'm trying to get them to kind of push in on them. Work it a little bit more to our advantage. Waiting for the shot. And I think this is where I get a pretty decent one. It's not the greatest considering the angle, but I could have done a little bit more damage had I led just a little bit less on the second shot. I could have probably 10K'd him easily. I'm keeping an eye on the one that's kind of scary. That Maverick guy, I think, is the one that Citadel'd me earlier on in the match, but I'm not 100% sure. You can see I'm still trying to keep an eye on him. And I'd rather be angled against him than the other Dirpitz, who seems more content to basically just back up and do a lot of nothing. To be honest, he's not that good of a threat. He's just in our cap. So that's taken care of. At this point, the match is pretty much over. We could have just sat back and parked, but that wouldn't make for a very fun night. So once he gets his shot off and he finishes it off, then I start my turn back towards him. Because I really do want that last guy to die. I think he's going to speed up, but I think I whiff on that one. And yeah, I whiff. I don't see him again for a little while, unfortunately. But he is there. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still dangerous. I have to watch where I engage him too, because if he gets too close, obviously he has the ability to torpedo out to, I believe, 6 kilometers. Not the greatest torpedo range in the world, but enough to get an edge in a close fight on a battleship. And any would-be suicidal destroyers have something else to think about, other than the guns. I don't remember what happens to the Pensacola on their team. Yeah, that guy right there. He, that's the one I Citadel'd at the very start. But never really got a good fix on his, on him to hit him again. I mean, at this point, I was more worried about the possibility of being torpedoed, so I kind of ignored the Pensacola. Which might not have been the smartest play, but I really didn't want to have to deal with this guy. Not when our cruisers were already in a bad way. The ones that we had left, they were both pretty wounded. As you see, I'm trying to wait for the shot, but I'm going to go ahead and take one anyway. That was a nice little bounce there. And I'm waiting on him to make his turn because I know what he wants to do. It's the same thing I would try to do, only I think I'd have waited longer to make the turn in his place. Mostly so that I don't eat, 7,000 damage a pop from a battleship. There's Confederate, which isn't ever a bad thing to get. Confederate's always nice. And, you can see that it's just not quite working out for him. I think he's already dumped torpedoes, which is why I did my turn where I did. I think he was expecting me to chase after him, which I am. I'm just not going around the obvious side of doom. And I guess the Pensacola does die, because I think he's about to eat it right here. So yeah, okay. Everything on this match we get to actually wipe. So he didn't get away. Always a good thing. Now they're going to set fire to the Dirpitz while I do my long, slow turn. Oh, I guess we won by cap. But yeah, that was a decent little replay there. Oh, where do we go to stop the recording?